you see is basically my talk today. This is me working in flow. And what I want to talk about is tapping into our creativity in order to optimize flow. And as a result of that work, that yielded my mind map on a very meta level of what I want to talk with you about today. So here's the question that is top of mind for me. It's how might we build our creative capacity in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution? And more importantly, what if we don't do that? So the fourth industrial revolution, just to clarify and back up a bit, the first industrial revolution was when we shifted from handmade to machine-made. The second industrial revolution was all about mass production. The third industrial revolution has been about going digital all the way up through the internet. The fourth industrial revolution, which we are currently experiencing, the train has left the station, is one where technology is ubiquitous. So augmented reality, robotics, automation, AI, ChatGPT are saturating our lives. And so what's really of interest to me is this question of what does creativity look like in the midst of this ubiquitous tech, and what effects might it have on our well-being? The headline that I'm really leading with is that we need to chill out and flow. Now, some of the statistics that I'm showing on this screen, I think we've all seen variations of these. These numbers are pretty striking in terms of the mental health challenges that people are having, the fact that many people are thinking that their workplace environments are contributing to their mental health challenges, and they're expecting that the workplace will actually do something about that. And very interesting to me, 55% of people in a still case study said they want to be more creative in their workplaces. The headline is that burnout is real. So what might we do about it? Well, because of artificial intelligence, the fourth industrial revolution, tapping into our creative flow is the most significant investment that we can make for our health and for our well-being. In fact, if we don't make that investment in our creative capacity, it's my premonition, my concern, that our emotional and mental health is at stake. So be aware that there is actually a new AI in town. It's not just artificial intelligence, but also artificial imagination. And I first heard the term artificial imagination back in 2017 in an interview with the musician and technologist Shelley Palmer in a PricewaterhouseCoopers interview. As a musician, he was talking about the fact that AI code can actually generate pretty convincing jazz music improvisational compositions. So when we think about ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT, we could have a really dystopian perspective and say, run for the hills, the robots are taking over. We could have a utopian perspective, which is, oh, nothing to worry about, all's good here. I tend to take on a heterotopian perspective. That in the balance, these sorts of augmentations to the ways that we get work done mean at the end of the day, we have to optimize our curiosity and our ability for critical thinking. Because a human being still needs to frame a better question to design the code. And if any of you have played around with ChatGPT, the challenge is the questions that you frame to get the more interesting outputs. So, what is creativity? I spent a lot of time thinking about that question as a creativity strategist. I think about creativity as our ability to toggle between wonder and rigor to solve problems. And wonder is about awe and audacity and big blue sky picture thinking. Wonder is also about pausing. Because as I like to remind people, it's really hard to wonder when you're going 80 miles an hour. Rigor is the other dimension of creativity. Rigor is about deep focus, time on task, discipline, and skill mastery. And we need both. But how do you actualize wonder and rigor consistently and sustainably in your life and in your work? Is there something I call the 3 I's, which are about inquiry, improvisation, and intuition. When we commit to our creative capacity and building it, when we commit to designing space and time for more wonder and more rigor, that is when we are actually immersed in flow. And the Hungarian-American psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi is one of the first psychologists and scientists to spend a lot of time really focused on this idea of deep immersion to the point where you forget where you are. Time seems to stand still. And for some of us, it's in moments like what I shared with you when I'm deep at work in that time-lapse video. It often happens when I'm dancing, because I'm a dance fiend. And for others, it's when they're in movement or when they're listening to deep, incredible music, right? But flow does not happen, actually, when we're doing nothing. Flow happens through immersion in activity that is meaningful to us. And if we don't design the space and the time for that wonder and for that rigor, for that flow, stress increases, and our mental and emotional health is challenged. So here's the thing. Right now, because the fourth industrial revolution is here, because augmented reality, AI, ChatGPT, all those sorts of things are saturating our lives, the positive, alternative way we can be looking at this is to ensure that we make room in our work environments and our organizations for what makes us uniquely human. And one of the things that makes us uniquely human is our creative capacity. So up until now, even, for a couple of centuries, we've been focused on showing up to work from the chin up, of really emphasizing our IQ. And then about 30 years ago, we saw an introduction of this concept of EQ, our emotional intelligence. But what I'd like to offer is that I think we also need to be showing up to work from the gut up, from really paying attention to the fact that we are sentient beings, and in the midst of this ubiquitous technology, it's our sentience, our intuition, it's the fact that we are feeling creatures that will actually help to optimize our work. So we need to engage in gut-up work. Now, gut-up work, from a physiological perspective, starts with the vagus nerve. It turns out we are all equipped with this human antenna. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve. It extends from the brain down to the heart into the gut. So when we say things like, my gut is telling me, it literally is. And it's the vagus nerve that actually allows for interoception to occur. Interoception is our internal sense-making equipment. Interoception helps us to understand, am I feeling hungry or am I satiated? Do I feel thirsty? Do I feel safe here? Or do I feel a little nervous? Or do I feel completely fine? And it's the vagus nerve that helps with interoception. Now, there are two types of interoception. I just want to do a quick experiment. If all of you would put both of your feet on the floor, put your hands on your lap, there's something called interoception awareness. So as you sit in stillness, are you aware of your breathing? Hopefully. And then there's interoception accuracy. Are you aware of the rate that your heart is beating? A lot harder to do. In some studies, there are some people who, without being able to put their hand on their wrist on their pulse or their hand on their heart, can feel the rhythm and beating of their heart. And the cool thing is that we can get better at this, but it comes from pausing, and it comes from being able to engage in flow. I was really interested in a 2009 research study that learned that enhanced cardiac perception is actually associated with better decision making. So people who are really good at that interoceptive accuracy and awareness, it actually feeds into our cognition. So what does that mean? We are sentient beings. So unlike Descartes, who said, I think and therefore I am, it's actually the other way around. We sense, we feel, then we think, and we act. And now more than ever, it's important to double down on that. So in my remaining time, I want to leave you with some practical ways that I believe you can begin to practice that gut up work. And I think we have to start with making a few shifts in our thinking and our mindset. So what I'm about to share with you may be a little counterintuitive to what we value, especially in our Western American society. The first thing I think we need to do in order to get better at gut up work is to slow down. The next thing we need to do is to be willing to lose. We also need to be willing to follow. And finally, we need to consider quitting some of the things we've been engaged in. I loved what Phoebe Robinson was affirming earlier this morning about making more time for doing nothing. So consider these questions. What would my life look like if I shifted away from churning and speeding my way through the day to slowing down? How about if I shifted away from prioritizing winning to considering what am I willing to lose? What if I shifted away from thinking about leadership as being out in the front to learning to follow? And finally, what if I shifted away from a focus on win-win-win to making space and time for quitting? So, the next logical question is, how the heck do we do that? I have 4 tips I want to share with you. Tip number 1. Sorry, actually, before I get to the tips, we need to couch this in terms of something I call invisible work. Invisible work is something that I define as the activities that allow your imagination to reign and spark the neural synapses that actually allow your best ideas to synthesize. And I wrote about this in a Fast Company article where I was pointing out that pausing, play, inquiry-based leadership, and embodied work, all are things that we can do in invisible work that spark our intuition. So, tip number 1, begin to commit to taking more daydream breaks. If this seems absurd to you, start with 90-second daydream breaks. Let your prompt be a cloud or an ant crawling on the sidewalk, and make sure you time yourself. And work your way up to 5-minute daily daydream breaks to pause. Secondly, begin to consider treating yourself to micro-retreats. They don't have to be really fancy, extravagant retreats to far-flung locations. They can be what I call noticing retreats. I actually wrote about this for She Media, and it's all about taking micro-retreats in order to notice more. So go to a neighborhood in your city or your town that you rarely frequent and just have a walk and take in what you're observing that's different from around your way. Tip number 3, commit to working standing and moving. If you recall in that time-lapse video that I shared, I'm working standing on my feet, I'm bending over the desk, I'm moving. We are not designed to sit and work all day long and getting cramped up, right? Our spinal cord is an extension from our medulla oblongata, and it actually cuts off oxygen to the brain. And finally, my last tip is to commit to being a clumsy student of anything. Because when you are a clumsy student, for me it's ballroom dance, you get a lot better at practicing inquiry, your intuition, your ability to improvise, and you'll design time for wonder and rigor. I have a short gift for all of you. It's the Wonder Rigor tip sheet. You can go to this link or take a snapshot of this QR code. I think we also have passed out a Wonder Rigor Catalyst booklet for all of you. That's a physical copy for you to take away. And here's what I want to leave you all with as you continue your journey at South by Southwest and as you consider in the next month how you can commit to gut up invisible work. Think about how you might commit where in your life you could design more space and more time for slowing down, for losing, for following, and for quitting. Thank you so much for your time.